Hello everyone. So this is step number 3 of the LangChain tool calling series. Now in step number 2 we set up our tools. So we had two functions, add and multiply. We defined the functions, we defined their schema, combined them using the tool method, and we have our tools array which contains these two tools. In this step we're going to bind our LLM with these tools. So basically what you see here on the right, we have our LLM. We're going to bind our LLM with this set of tools, so that given a question that requires one of these tools, the LLM will reach out, will decide to pick one of these tools, get back a response, and give us something that's relevant. So in this case, we left off on step number 2. We left off where our tools were created and included in this array. Now this is a simple step, is the tool binding process, which basically we're taking our LLM instance and we're using the bind tools method to bind the LLM with the tools with this array. Now it's important in here to note something that's included in the documentation. The tool needs to be connected to a model that supports tool calling. So there are particular LLMs that support this kind of feature, so they can reach out and they can call, or they can pick a tool. So make sure to check the reference list in the description below to see what models support this tool calling. If you're using Ollama, like I'm doing in this series, you can also find a list of models that can be downloaded and used through Ollama and support tool calling. So this tool binding gives the model awareness of the tool and the associated input schema required by the tool. This means, of course, that the LLM knows about the tool that it has in its set of tools, and it can create the schema, it can create the input schema that can be passed to these tools, and then subsequently the functions that are connected with these tools can be called and get a response. In the case of Ollama, the bind tools method is only exists in the chat models. So right here you'll see that I'm importing chat Ollama from the Ollama library. There's also an Ollama class that you can use to import and use the simple type of models, but I'm going to be using the chat Ollama for making use of this feature. So importing the chat Ollama, binding, and now the LLM is aware of these tools. And next I'm going to test my LLM with some prompts. In here this is also taken from the documentation. I'm creating an array of messages and I'm going to try a couple of messages. So basically now I'm using the human message class, which I imported right here. This is a special class that allows us to instantiate a new message. This is a human message, meaning this is what the user will actually ask. There are also system messages that we can use in other types of messages. Also check the description to find the relevant part of the documentation to learn more about messages. So I will pass just one message here, like how are you today, in this array, and then I'm going to invoke my LLM. If you remember in the first video, the first step, we invoked the LLM. We said LLM.invoke messages or a question. In this case, I'm not using the LLM. I'm using the LLM that is bound with tools. So I'm using the LLM with tools, which is the LLM plus the tools. It's aware of the tools. So I'm invoking it with the list of messages, which is just one in this case. I'm going to get back a response, and I'm going to console log the whole AI message and the property that it's found in this object that you will see, which is called tool calls. And I will explain by trying different prompts here on what's happening. And then once I get the response, I'm going to push it into the messages array. so that I can forward this to another call to the LLM to get back the final response. So basically, we ask a question, the LLM reads this out to the tool, will run the tool, get a response back, and then it will combine these two to actually provide the final response. So I will open up my terminal and run step 3. Now, by asking the question, how are you today, you will see that I get a response. Okay, I'm not able to understand the question. The provided functions seem to be related. Okay, I think, let me see if I have called basics 3. Okay, let me run this again. Okay, I think okay, for some reason it's it's not giving me back the response I was expecting. It says I'm not able to understand the question. The provided functions seem to be related to mathematical. Okay, this means that the LLM is aware of the tools, and it's a little bit confused about my question and what it can do with the tools that it has available. Let me console log just the content to better understand and debug this situation. We're going to solve with some prompt engineering. So I'm not able to understand the question. The provided functions seem to be related to mathematical operations. This seems that the LLM is aware of the provided functions. It knows that we have given it some functions, but they're not relevant to the question about one's emotional state. So it's really smart. It says, you know, you told me to use these tools or to reach out to these tools, but the question that you posed is a little bit irrelevant. And then it says something about, you know, what we can do and how we can reframe our prompt, our question, in order to use these tools. Now, in this case, we need to do some prompt engineering to actually update our messages so that the LLM can easily decide whether it really needs to choose a tool, or it can respond without having to reach out to these tools. Like, for example, in this case, if we ask the LLM, how are you today, it shouldn't try to use one of the two tools which are only just for adding and multiplying numbers. It should just respond, you know, I'm fine, or ask me if you want something. So important thing here is that given this question, how are you today, the response, it's not maybe the perfect one or the ideal one, but as you can see here, this array, the tool calls array, is still empty. Now, this means that the LLM was smart enough to understand that it doesn't need any of the two tools available. It doesn't need to call the add or the multiply tool because the question is not relevant to to an arithmetic operation. So it was smart enough to decide not to call any of these tools, but it was kind of like confused. So let's do some prompt engineering. And in here, I'm going to add a system message along with the human message. I'm going to import this from the LangChain library. So I'm going to go to the LangChain core, system message, and import system message. So system message is intended to provide some information to the system, to the LLM. The human message is we use it to craft user questions, let's say, user messages for our chat. So in here, along with the message, I'm going to provide some additional details or instructions. You are a helpful assistant that can answer, let's say, general purpose questions. Let me just make this, turn this in here. We don't need this at this point. general purpose question, and also provide, let's say, can answer and also help the user with, I don't know, help the user with mathematical operations. If the question is not related with any math operations, just answer, let's say, as usual. Otherwise, pick one of the available tools. So I'm giving some more feedback, some let's say guidelines to the LLM, so that we kind of like get rid of this confusion. So I think with these methods, which is intended, for the system, this will probably give us a better response when we ask, "How are you today?" So let's see how this goes. Okay, I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. So much better. It didn't provide any answer like, "Hey, you told me to do this, the operations for the arithmetic." Now this number is the length of the tool calls array, the one that I showed you earlier, which was like empty. So basically this means that the LLM was once again smart enough to not pick one of the tools available, because it doesn't need to call the add or the multiply function for responding with to a "How are you?" So that's good, and this resulted in 0 tool calls. Now I'm going to pose another question. This time I'm going to ask it to add 2 numbers together, or what's the result of this operation. So let me see how it's going to respond. Okay, so it used, as you can see, it used a tool. So this is not 0, which means that it used the tool. I'm going to now also console of the tool calls to actually see which tool calls it decided to call. And also you can see that the methods was like the methods content is empty, like it didn't respond with anything, which is kind of like strange. So let's see what we get back now that we have this extra console log. So here's the tool calls. It's an array. Earlier it was empty, but now it contains an object, and this basically says that I think I should reach out to this tool, which has the name add, and I need to provide these arguments. So as you can see, it provides the A and B correctly, but incorrectly takes the input from our question. So 11 and 49 were correctly placed in here, but the type is of type string. It's not of type number, even though the schema for this tool, as you remember, is number. So for some reason, even though we provided the schema, it wasn't enough for the LLM to actually transform the input, the numbers that we presented in our question, into numbers. So in order to fix that, what I can do is I can come up with a more descriptive name and maybe a more detailed description. So instead of using add in here, or maybe showing just adds A and B together, I will elaborate a little bit more. So adds numbers A and B together. The arguments A and B are, let's say, strictly numbers. Perhaps with this description, the LLM can make a better job in creating the appropriate argument object that we will pass it on to the function and get a result. So let me run this again. Now, as you can see, it did a better job in providing the correct schema for our function. So it took the 11 and the 49 from our question, and then it correctly placed them in an object that it conforms to our schema. So we're ready to pass it on to our add tool. Let me check with two more prompts here. So I'm going to ask it like to multiply two numbers. Let's see, as you can see, the same thing happens. It provides the correct like structure, but the type is a string. So let me, I can also try this through the system methods, but I will go into the functions. So multiplies numbers a and b. The arguments a and b are strictly numbers. It's better to put this in the description of the function that's actually producing, let's say, the problem, which is the wrong context, the wrong schema. Let me run this. It's still not, let me try again. I hope it's saved. Okay, it's still not doing a great job. So let me go back and see whether I can try something. So multiplies numbers a and b. The arguments a and b are strictly numbers. Let's see, how can I and of no other type. Let's see whether this helps our LLM produce a better schema. Still the same. Let me try one more time. Okay, it seems that we have a bit of a problem here. I'm going to try another thing in here, and I'm going to change the name. So multiply two numbers. So I'm going to add a bit more of a descriptive name for the function metadata. So let's see what happens now. Still nothing. Let's go and let's check our schema. Our schema looks okay. Multiply number a and b, they are strictly numbers. Let me try engineering the system prompt a little bit. The arguments passed to the mathematical tools should be strictly of type number. Let's see whether that makes this provide a better response. And we get the numbers right now. So it needs a little bit of tweaking through some prompt engineering. Like we have to be flexible enough to change both the description, the function name. Now let me try one more call in one more message, and this time I'm asking both to do the LM to do both a multiplication and an addition. So let's see how this goes. Now in this case we have just one tool calling object, so it for both the add and the multiply question, it correctly decided to pick one of the two functions in its case. Now it should reach out to both of them because I'm asking it to do a multiplication and an addition. So indeed we have like the tool calls property has like a length of 2, so it correctly reached out to two tools. So it picked the multiply two numbers and the add, and it correctly inferred the input and passed it as a number into the arguments object. So in both cases 3 and 12 are correct and are placed here, and in here we have these arguments. So with a little bit of tweaking, and of course more test is needed, we were able to make the LLM reach out to the appropriate tools and convert our question and the values that we placed in our question into these arguments objects that will in the next step be passed on to the actual functions that will execute and bring back the result. So this is for step number 3. In the last step we'll just pass these arguments to the functions, get back the result from the function execution, and then hopefully get our final response from the LLM, which contains the answer to these questions. So I'll see you in the next video.